Good morning, good day, good evening, good night, wherever and whenever you're listening to this. Welcome to the BitX Town Hall. Today we're writing the Town Hall number 51. I'm One Clue, your host. I'm happy to be here, and I'm really happy to have you back again in 2026. The first Town Hall this year, the last Town Hall in last year was shortly before Christmas, I'd say, and it was nice having a look forward into the future, what might come into this year, and here we are. We have a couple of news, a couple of updates, great things, some bug fixes, and we will hopefully also have someone else on the stage to talk with me about some cool stuff that is happening and that is coming out. So with that, as I said earlier, I do hope everybody of you did had a great start into 2026. If not, I wish you a happy new year, and I do hope this year is going to be awesome for you. This year hopefully also brings a ton of new miners to everybody who is interested, especially into open source miners, as we don't have enough of them. With that, let me quickly get someone else here onto the stage, because I want to jump into a topic that is hopefully really nice. Hey Duncan, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm all right, thank you very much. I'm as usual happy to be here. I have a beer. I'm at my computer. It's very cold outside, and that's all I got really. It's yeah, all good, thank you.
You get a beer, that's a great thing. What kind of beer do you have?
So actually, I'm not sponsored by them, nor am I endorsed by them. But someone sent me a load of cans of something called Impossible Brew. It's a don't laugh. It's an alcohol. It's 0.5% alcohol. So no, it's technically alcohol free, but it's got like a ashwagandha L-theanine mushroom blend. So it's not really a beer. It's more like yellow mushroom fizzy water. But it's very nice. It's very relaxing. It's very strange. But I've got them and I'm drinking them because I want to make room in my fridge for real beer at some point.
These mushrooms, they seem to have some sort of an effect on you, huh?
Um, well, I'm relaxed and I'm happy, so that's all. That's all I got, really.
That's really great. It's really great. Well, I think a good start into this year is obviously talking about the most recent release that we had, which is the version 2.12.2, which is so minor that we can probably hop over that in just 2 minutes. To those of you who are a little bit confused, why is there 2.12.2 and not 2.12.1? Well, the answer is pretty simple. I fat fingered and I forgot to add in a specific config value. So yeah, we do have the rule. If something is released, we don't re-release it. So we just skip the version 1 and we never really published it. But anyway, version 2.12.2 is out. Why is this important? Well, there are two things. First of all, we fixed a couple of issues with the TPS phase register, especially for the upcoming two TPS versions. For example, the GT. With that, we also have released the first version of the GT, which will be the 801. It's not, it is released. Yeah. There you go. Apart from that, we also do have a couple of improvements when it comes to the self-test, as well as a couple of fixes on other tests, as well as unit tests, etc. pp. So 2.12.2 is only out there to actually make sure that we can release the GT and that a couple of major issues with the TPS and double phase are worked out. So yeah, that is only what's to say about 2.12.2. I think we can now move forward to have a little bit of a future outlook for what will happen this year, or what also has happened last year and we never really spoke about because there was no time, or people were too drunk, or too well fed from Christmas and New Year. So I think we can dive into that now. Duncan, would you mind talking a little bit about aluminium?
Yes. What do you want to know? The long and short of it, I really enjoy working with aluminium, or aluminum for my friends over the pond. I do a lot of extrusion work. My factory in China, we have extruders. We've been playing on a lot of skived aluminium, where you kind of shave a slab of ali and bend it up to make heat sinks. And actually, kind of on that, your beautiful product, the Nerd NOS, we've given it the full extruded aluminium treatment of late. We've you and I worked very closely together on a new aluminium heatsink and an extruded case for the Nerd NOS, which is sorry, Rod, you just made me laugh. As great as 3D printing is for process, as far as I'm concerned, for rapid prototyping, I'm a real firm believer of, for mining to succeed in the home, it needs to be beautiful and have utility. And in my opinion, yes, the 3D printing kind of ecosystem works, but it's not beautiful. And I really enjoy kind of designing and pushing kind of metal. It's solid, it's quality. So we've given the Nerd NOS the aluminium treatment. And yeah, that's that. Obviously, we
Let me
talk about
quickly
the other
post a
stuff.
picture in the chat. I mean, to be honest, the Nerd NOS in a aluminium case, sure. For those of you who don't know what the Nerd NOS is, basically the idea behind that was, well, we have a bunch of nerd miners out there, but there are, depending if you do like this answer or not, they are more or less useless when it comes to actual hashing. So what did we do? We created a teeny tiny PCB that you'd attach to the LittleGo T-Display S3 to the back of it, which does feature a real ASIC chip. With that, well, the sky was the limit. The Nerd NOS that is currently out there does feature the BM1397, therefore it is low on power consumption, it's underclocked, it's zipping around 10 watts of power, and it's really silent. We had lots of different versions when it comes to a 3D printed case, but none of that was really feeling what it should be, like something that is appealing to the eye that you can have on your desk. Some of you might disagree with us and would say, well, I do love it if I have a ton of cables on my desk and if I can see a lot of GPIO pins on my desk. Sure, I do love that as well. But some might like a really nice aluminium case even more. So therefore, we created that. And with that, we have the Nerd NOS in an aluminium case. And I do love it. It is fantastic. I don't want to do any sorts of advertisement, but the fact that the Nerd NOS is out there, it's also an open source thing. And it's just a great piece of aluminium. But
I think that's a great way to describe it. It's a great piece of aluminium. And with this, actually, it was a real kind of design challenge that both of us went over. We wanted to create something that was handheld, looks great on a desk, but didn't look out of place, but also utilize kind of some existing technologies. So obviously, most I've made the bitchin sink, which at the time was bitchin, but we all know there's far better units out there now, which is fine because evolution of design and whatever. But what we did for the Nerd NOS is we used the die from the bitchin sink and remachined the heat sinks that the extrusion spat out to fit it within the form factor required for the Nerd NOS. So rather than having to go through the expense and the ball ache of making a new die, we actually just remachined the bitchin sink to work with the Nerd NOS, and then we looked at CFD analysis for ducted flow of the cooling path. Can I share my screen? I just want to show something.
You probably can. Yes, Chris is asking in the chat if the Nerd NOS is open source. Yes, of course. I mean, we're not talking about anything that's not open source here. Not open source things are prohibited, mostly, unless we want to reverse engineer then.
So loading up Fusion here. So this is the heatsink isn't shown. Let me get rid of your logo. I don't know why it's there. But essentially, we've got this ducted path. If I can spin this around, it's really laggy, so you have to excuse me.
Sometimes it's the same on my end. It's the newest keycard updates are a little bit. Oh no, you're in Fusion, right?
It's Fusion, yeah. So so what we did some CFD analysis and offset this scoop. So when the fan is in front of it, what happens is you get about 85% of the airflow. Actually, it's more than that on this. This is a slightly older version, but essentially you can see that if it really condenses it down into this kind of this outlet or chimney, as it were, that when it's ploughing across the heatsink on top, it works exceptionally well, and it's almost silent, which is really nice. And I have released the case and all these duct parts as part of the open source stuff. So if anyone wants to print them, they're welcome to. What works incredibly well, though, with this whole metal ecosystem is, if I can find it, there's just so much crap here, you have to excuse me. What I'm looking for is a glass front. In actual fact, you haven't got a camera on, have you? In fact, if you go back and look at Montclou's picture, I'm going to stop sharing the screen for a minute. You can see, obviously, you got the nerd nos, but I don't know if you can see top right. There's there is literally a glass panel that is flush with the aluminium. You run your finger across, it doesn't dip down like into some weird recess. So we've had some glass, some 1 millimeter thick glass panel that sticks over a milled kind of pocket or recess on the aluminium, so it's completely flush, which also protects the screen of the nerd nos. So essentially, we have over-engineered it, but it's a finished product, and it's something we're really pleased with.
Over-engineering is probably one of the top 10 things that we do here. But apart from that,
yeah. If I may, on the whole over-engineering thing, I was talking to Wonkley this evening about something we're playing with on the Bitforge Nano, and he was like, "Dude, that's so over-engineered." I was like, "Yeah, maybe, but it's also cool." Mutatrum, are you okay? Are you serious?
You only hear Duncan, nobody else. This is really weird.
Maybe because I'm not giving you a chance to talk. All right. Yeah, Mutatrum, if you right click on one,
he should just rejoin. That's probably it.
Well, or on the left-hand side, on the drop-down that shows all the members of the town hall, right-click on your name and you can mute or turn people up and down. I don't know, maybe he's done something. But anyway. Talking about over-engineering, yes, if we have space and capacity, yes, you absolutely can over-engineer, because all it does is it kind of creates pathways for new kind of inspiration and ideas. And I want to kind of at some point this evening, if we get onto the Bitforge Nano, I'll tell the story about you saying over-engineering it, but actually, what we came up with is a brilliant solution to what I want to do as the kind of next evolution of this kind of finished product. But we can talk about that later. Has he actually gone?
No, I'm not gone. While you were talking, I was just checking why the freaking heck the OBS plugin is not working. And probably this also answers the question why Mutatron was not really hearing me. It seems like there are some issues with the Discord servers, which is the reason why many things are currently not working. Anyway, so now, we do have a nice aluminium case for the Nerd Nose, which is indeed really, really lovely. But the next thing that is really nice, where you also work with me on it, is the Bitforge Nano. Last town hall that we had, which was in last year, I said to the people, well, I'm not willing to talk about the Bitforge Nano, because the reason being, at the last town hall, it was not released. The Bitforge Nano was released on Christmas Eve, and after that, we didn't had any town hall. I was not in the mood of doing a town hall between the years, so now probably is the time to a little bit speak about it and why the Bitforge Nano does even exist. What's really weird is I did a couple of videos about it while I was releasing it and telling the people what to expect from it, how does it look, etc. And some people commented beneath that they're really happy to see something which is well engineered compared to the BitX, which is crap in their eyes. And I was super confused. Either these people are bots or they don't know what they're talking about. But I'm also happy that people do appreciate the design and the effort that went into it. But anyway, so Bitforge Nano, what is that? It's another open source miner. It's a dual chip design. Well, you could see it as a competitor to the GT, which just has been released. And sure, well, it is. But what we try to do, and I'm pointing out at Clear, a really good friend of mine who was doing all the PCB work, Duncan, who was doing all the work on the heatsink and the airflow, and me, who was doing all the work when it comes to the software. We were thinking about basically the terms of, well, the BitX is cool, and we do have sort of this internal agreement of we need to do things granny-proof. Your granny needs to be able to actually set up a BitX. Well, this might work sort of or not, but in the end of the day, it comes down to a couple of factors, and people are sometimes overloaded with options they do have. Even if you take a look on the current state of ESP Miner and how the BitX does function, you have a ton of features, which is great, which gives you flexibility, it gives you openness. You can do whatever you want with your hardware. It is your hardware. But what we wanted to create is something that is a little bit more simplistic, that does have a different approach to what the BitX is doing in terms of design and in terms of PCB design, especially because it has been engineered from the ground up again. Sure, there are similarities between a couple bits and pieces, but the really important thing is that we made sure it is sort of integratable into ESP Miner, and it does feature all the necessary things, has everything that is needed when it comes to regulations, etc. So the standpoint of how and why we do design this was more into let's keep it simple. Let's keep it a little bit stealthy for the people who just want to appreciate something that's simple and hopefully somewhat beautiful as well. You do see Duncan posted in the chat a couple of pictures of it. The first one that you do see is with the 3D printed shroud that we do have it around it, or case. As far as I do know, Duncan is willingly working on a metal version as well here. And
Yeah, well, as you might know, I quite like metal. So I like, and this is a true story. Like, I don't sleep very well most of the time, but I woke up at 3 a.m. just thinking about, it's like, I need to make this Bitforge Nano better. Yes, I am happily married. Yes, I do, actually have a life, but I don't switch off, and this sort of stuff is always on my mind. And actually, I was thinking the Bitforge Nano. It's two BM1370s. It's almost like a mini heater. It's not it's not a Nano 3S by any means, but it's just a really small, little beautiful thing. And I just thought it just needs to be something else. So what I've come up with is a full aluminium case. I'm going to put another picture in. Actually, I think that's bigger. So essentially, say again.
I said we're flooding the people with pictures here. So I'm really sorry for everybody who's listening to this later on Spotify or wherever you're listening to that. But, well, you can just come on the Discord server, which you can find under discord.gg/OSMU, and you can find all of the information that you need, or if you even just want to have a chat with the developers or other people who are curious in the open source theme and sector.
That's exactly that. Metal case, metal base, metal lid, extruded aluminium with all the slots milled in. The red window you see at the moment, that's another flush glass panel so you can see inside, and there's a ring of pixel addressable LEDs on the top of it, downlighting the heatsink, and they will be addressable for effects and all that sort of stuff. But essentially, it's about the metal, it's about the LED, it's about the subtlety, it's about kind of, I want to say looking beautiful in the home. Obviously that's not to everybody's taste, but because it is extruded alley, it very much can be, polished or, anodized blue or whatever with a laser engraving. K1, he said, is there a seam at the top, or is this machine to depth from billet? It'll be machine to depth from billet on. So actually, I'm going to backtrack. There's two. I've got prototypes coming of it machined from a solid lump of billet. But actually, cost-wise, I don't think that's going to scale, which is why I'm looking at the extrusion. But what's going to happen is the extrusion will be oversized at the top. We'll then recess a pocket out to drop the lid in, so the lid then sits flush with the wall, the side wall of the extrusion, if that makes sense. Rather than being a lid that plonks on top, it kind of sits down into a well. But essentially, it's just all metal, and I just quite like designing things. That's what I want at the moment, and I think the progression from the 3D printed version, which serves a purpose, which is fine, to the metal version, I just think comes back to that thing of these things, for them to succeed in the home, they need to be beautiful or have utility, and this ticks those boxes. And what I think is actually fantastic about the Bitforge Nano is it does have CE and ROHS certification worldwide. And there's another American one that it has as well, but the I think it was DTV pushed that. Tony from DTV really pushed the certification and stuff from China. So I think it's of one of the first that, like, straight out the gate, it's got all the certs. So I think if this is going to do well, perhaps go mainstream, it needs to have a good case solution that looks great. I'm probably going to build in a IR remote control, just go full over the top, just for a laugh, to set your colours or however you want to do it. circling back around to one clue saying, dude, that's so over-engineered. I want a way to get the LED to subtly pulse like the bit halo from the BitAxe that some of you may know on share submission. But because there's no serial data test point short of physically soldering onto the ESP32, which I don't want to do, what I'm going to do is use a not a light dependent resistor. It's the other one, the photo transistor. Someone will correct me, I'm sure, but essentially it's a sensor that's looking at the on the LED on the board. There is a diagnostic LED that flashes every time there's a share submission. So I'm going to use that flash to trigger the lighting board that I will then add in the secondary board. So he was like, dude, it's over-engineered, but I quite like the idea of doing that. So yeah, so that's the where the Bitforge Nano is at the moment. Again, all of it is open source. Yeah, it's a really, really lovely project. The heatsink in it is pretty special. There's a lot of surface area on that alley. Yeah, and we're cooling it from two 40mm fans, and it's cooling really well. It's just a lovely product, lovely project, and I'm really pleased to be involved with it.
I mean, one thing to make sure here is that we do discuss the thing that some people thought, well, is this some sort of attack against BitX? No, by no means. The Bitforge Nano is more or less just a proven concept of like, can we design things a little bit differently? And my friend of mine, we had this idea about like, well, let's design it a little bit differently. Let's keep up on a couple of different approaches. And we needed to make a proof that we can actually build that. And with that, there's the Bitforge Nano. I mean, there's a story to the Bitforge Nano and why we have credited, why it does have its name that it does have. And I did a couple of videos about that in YouTube. So if you want to dive into that topic, you can do that there. Because I don't want to waste too much time here talking about so many different projects that we do have, while we need to talk about upcoming things that are so cool that we will have with the BitX and all the other projects that are here. And obviously, the Bitforge is going to be one of these projects, but the approach is a little bit different there. So BSS is asking in the chat, why not use a copper heatsink instead of aluminium? Well, cost. It's purely down to cost. And this aluminium heatsink does a perfect job when it comes to cooling it down. I personally, so the Bitforge Nano, just for quick reference, it does have 3 power modes. You can overclock it if you want to, slightly. It's the same feature as in the BitX, where you change the URL to the $OC, and then you have the option to do that. But if you don't know that, you only have like 3 modes: low power mode, medium power mode, and high power mode. You have like 3 buttons. That's it. And even in the high power mode, where the Bitforge Nano is sitting at like 2.6, 2.8 terahash, depending on how good your chips are, you will never see these ASIC chips, at least from the units that I do have, and I tested quite a bunch of them. I never saw them anywhere above 60 degrees on the ASIC. Like, that would be the highest, 60 degrees. The biggest concern here with this heatsink was the TPS, the buck converter. So therefore, we have a unified heatsink that does allow for cooling of both ASIC chips as well as the TPS to make sure everything is snuggly cool, as good as possible. Let's see what's going on in the chat.
Sorry, I was typing.
Is there also some heat transfer onto the case? No. Yeah, as you said. I mean, you guys, some of you are probably on X, and some of you have seen this X channel or not, but there's a channel on X, or a account that is called Fanless Tech. If you haven't checked out this account, do it. You are going to be pleased. There are so cool projects out there, and designs and cases and heat sinks for fanless cooling, just with convection of the heat itself. It is fantastic. And I really would love to do something in that term. Like, the biggest issue is you need big heat sinks to make use of convection. And yeah, that's sometimes unfeasible when it comes to the price, because you do see this these days. People are constantly all over the place, especially manufacturers that are producing. Let's keep it on the topic BitX. Every manufacturer who is around there, all of them are battling against each other for the best price they can give out to their customers. And that is for a specific reason, because customers in the end, they only care about one thing. They don't care if a product is open source or not. They don't care if it looks good or not. Sometimes people do. But most of the people, like the biggest amount, are only interested in, well, what is the best price that I can get? I mean, it is what it is. Some people do like this way. Some people think, well, that's not thought through it. But in the end, it is what you need to adapt if you are selling things. And that's one of the reasons why I'm not selling things. I'm just developing here as I think it would be too stressful to keep up on this. But anyway, I think we can dive a little bit into other topics as well here, and talking about ESP Miner and what will happen in the future, especially in 2026. We have lots of cool plans up. I do have a couple of pull requests from Mutatrum that I need to still review. I also need to check out some older PRs. One thing that I want to make sure that I do point out here is that I want to have a moment of appreciation for someone who left us. Not in terms of he's dead or something. So get that out of your head if you had that in there. But we had someone shortly on here who was Duckeggs. He was helping us a ton when it comes to the front end. He was doing a ton of improvements. He was helping us really out, because most of the developers that we do have are mostly on the back end. We have a couple of people who are into front end and UI design and UX design, but not that many. And Duckeggs was doing a ton of work. He was opening basically every single day a new pull request and was sending over changes and was doing so much and so good work. And apparently he left. He said he no longer has any time to be here. And he said that last year, probably like 1 or 2 weeks before Christmas. He said, well, he sadly no longer has any time. So I want to take a moment of appreciation for this dude or woman, whoever or whatever he is. But I'm sad about this, that he's now gone. But it was really great to have him here, and I wanted to point that out.
Yeah, well said. I totally agree with that. And yeah, maybe at some point he or she or they will listen to this, and yeah, the efforts were appreciated. I agree.
Hopefully. I mean, things are open here. I don't know if he's coming back. He just told me that he's gonna leave and he's not gonna come back in the near future. But we'll see. We'll see. There are in the future there will be more coming and going, and it is what it is. But people are so nice that I want to make sure that we do appreciate them, and that people do know that there are developers who are sometimes leaving us, and we will not forget you. That's what I want to say here.
Mr. Rogers would be really proud of your monologue there, Monclu. Very good for the American folk.
All right, I think we should dive into a topic that some of you guys, especially recently, do have a little bit of concerns about, which is pools and the integrity of pools. We have talked about this topic numerous times on this Discord server here as well, where we are discussing if pools are actually doing what they're telling you that they are doing. Like, for example, you're mining to a pool, and this pool is telling you, well, we are a solo mining pool and we only charge a 2% fee. Well, how can you actually make sure that you trust this pool? How can you verify that? Because it's all about don't trust, verify. And there are numerous tools out there. I think like 3 people in this Discord here alone have created a tool to investigate that. I myself did that as well. I have a Python script to investigate pools and the Stratum connectivity, just quickly to go down and check if the pool is actually sending out the correct Coinbase and is putting your address into the Coinbase or not. But what Mutatrum was working on is a couple of other things. For example, a parser for the Coinbase transaction, so that you can actually see what is actually happening in the Coinbase as well as like the outputs. Where is the Bitcoin going? And this is a PR that is still under review. I mean, most of the things are currently under review. It was Christmas, it was New Year, so we're settling into this topic again. And I really love to see that we had a couple of weeks off, and most of us developers were just enjoying the days and had good holidays. At least that's what I do hope. But yeah, there are so many things coming. One of them is the Coinbase transaction parser, which will be then integrated into the web UI as well, so that you can see, well, I'm mining to solo mining pool, but the output of what the pool is promising to me is not the same as what's happening. Mutato was also posting a picture in the chat here. As I said, I still need to review that, but dude, it's 1,510 lines added and 115 lines erased. Thank you, Mutato. I'll take a look into that. It's a ton of work that all of us developers are doing on this, so I really appreciate that we have so many things going on there. Also, with that, we have another thing open for Mutatron, which is the scoreboard. It happens to be that we do have a lot of people who are interested in their best difficulty and that they want to have a little bit of different representation. Therefore, he built the scoreboard. DarkX was also more or less involved in that. I think in the design, Mutatron, please correct me if I'm mistaken here. But yeah, these are more or less cosmetic changes and parser changes. We also do have a couple of other things upcoming for this year. One of the biggest things, obviously, is new hardware. For example, the GT, which is now supported since we have released it a week ago. The GT 801 is the first official version that is out there. So if you go onto all of these websites from these, I don't know how to call them, milches or untrustworthy or whatever sellers that are selling you the BitX GT 800 XXX version. Well, I need to say to you, the XXX version, it's an unfinished product. It does have design flaws in terms of the buck converter, in terms of how we do use it. And if you purchase these devices and you update to the most recent release, they will not work. If you stay with the release where they were working, it will at some point die because the PCB design for the buck converter was not correct. There were lots of imperfections, which will cause the components probably to wear out really soon. So yeah, if you do purchase them, good luck. But it would be best to just check out for official releases instead of just buying what is out there. I mean, imagine. One other thing that is really a good thing for us developers that is also coming in hopefully the next couple of weeks, we did a lot of reviews on that, is changing the way how we do handle the API. So currently you do know we have like the API, you can interact with it. There are some apps out there to interact with it, or some people also wrote some Windows or Linux or Mac applications that you can have and look into your devices, because all of these devices have an API. You can communicate over the API with everything, and therefore to make things a little bit easier, especially for us developers to change things in the future or to go forward, we're moving away from the hard-coded style into a generation of API services. Therefore, we do have the open API.yaml file, which is a descriptive file. Basically, we're writing down what will happen there, and then we can generate the endpoints, etc. pp. The cool thing about that is instead of us having to change, like, let's say 5 or 7 different lines to adding a new feature, we only need to change one single line, which is really awesome, and it helps a ton. And on that, Hexfox was working on that. He was doing a really good job. I'm currently still reviewing the changes that I did to the front end so that the front end still does work. Then I'm gonna need to PR this as well. I don't know if Hexfox, if you have already checked out the branch of mine. You said you're gonna download and test it. I mean, I tested it on my devices, but we'll see what you respond. I still need to fix 1 or 2 timeout issues. But apart from that, there are lots of improvements coming. We are also hoping really shortly to receive the first versions of the next ASIC chip. And we also do have a couple of other ASIC chips that we are working on. Obviously, you do know this. We have talked about this plenty of times, the Intel Bonanza chips. They are more or less interesting. The most interesting part about these Intel chips is going to be these miners will be super cheap. That is the most important thing there. I mean, we talked about it in the earlier today, that people are mostly interested in the prices and that there is a constant war of prices going around. And with the Intel Bonanza chip, it's not going to be the best efficiency. It's not going to be the highest of hash rate, but it's going to be the cheapest one. And therefore, the price per terahash will be really, really appreciable, because these Intel chips, there are millions out there, more or less, and they are free if you know the right people. And that's a super weird thing. The SHA-256 Foundation, they have received, I think, a couple thousand chips, I don't know, and they are giving them currently around in the US because they need to stay on US soil for whatever reason. So I personally don't have my hands on one of these because I'm not allowed to as an European. Yeah, but these chips are going to be handed out free, and there are more laying around in warehouses. I don't know who does have the entirety. I think Block does. I'm not certain. So not the company itself, but someone involved with that. I think that is what happened. That someone acquired all of these ASIC chips from Intel, and they never built a miner off of that, or never really something that is mass producible. So now they're giving them away for free because they are more or less worthless these days. They have like, I don't know, 200 to 300 gigahashes per chip, and they're sitting at a efficiency of 30 joules per terahash. So not that great. We're looking basically more or less at the same things that we do know from the BM1397 or 62 even. They're more or less in the same range. And the great thing about that is you completely eliminate the factor of the ASIC cost. So with that, at least this part can be cheaper. The current prices, if you do take a look on the BM1370, you need to pay like $20-25 per ASIC chip. Even if you do purchase these machines and you desolder these chips and then you build them onto your machine and you sell this as a manufacturer speaking, you still have a cost of like $20-25 per unit, which is quite heavy. And if you can cut that off, either you charge the same price and you just make a bigger profit, or you can also reduce the price for your customers and people are happy double. I do hope the latter thing will happen. I do see a question from Sean in the chat. What were major changes points in the 811 release from the 800XXX for the GT repo? Still say it's prototype and not built for GT. Yeah, I need to change that on the repo. But I mean, there's a release out there, and we only put out a release if this is actually gonna be finished. We said that a couple of times. I think we also wrote that on a couple of posts here in Discord. But apart from that, I make sure you know what? I just go into this repo right now and I do change it that it is working. So what were the major changes? The 800XXX is the third revision. Scott built a fourth revision, and the fourth revision is basically the 801. For the changes, we changed over from the typical TPS design, from being with all of these resistors, etc., PP, down to a stripe down version, which does reduce a ton of resistors and capacitors and a couple other things that you do need on it, as well as we changed a little bit on the layout, a couple of things. We introduced another mounting hole for better mounting and holding to the ASIC chip, between the ASIC chip and the heatsink. So now it's evening out, because I do have an 803X here as well that I was developing on, and just 4 holes is a nice thing, but if you think about it, how the pressure is handling on the aluminum pieces of the heatsink, it was wobbly, it was not making good contact, and my device was constantly overheating because of this shitty mounting situation. So we added in another mounting hole, which is minor. We changed a couple of routes on the PCB, which are minor. Then we changed a couple of routes which are necessary for the TPS to ensure its integrity when it comes to signal communication between the two TPS buck converters, and we made it stripeless, which is really a huge different change, especially in how we do initialize these chips, because you think, well, 5 volts or 12 volts in this case is going in and 1.2 volts is going out, that's it. No, these chips, they actually do have their own brain. You can program them, you can tell them you put out 1 volt, you put out 2 volt, this is your configuration. You also talk to a different buck converter. You need to make sure if you report to me back again, like I'm currently thinking out of the way of the ESP32, if you report back to me the outgoing amperage, not only tell me your amperage, but also tell me the amperage of your neighbor, etc. pp. So there are plenty of things that you can differently program on them. So when it comes to the power stages and all the power rails, they have been massively overworked. And if you just check out to the GT repo and take a look on the 800XXX, make a screenshot, put it to the right-hand side of your screen, and go over to the 801, then you do see these changes there, hopefully, if you want to have them visually. But more or less, these are the changes. And in version 2.12.2, we actually made sure that the integration of the stripeless TPS setup is working, and the synchronization between these chips is also working, which is not the case with the 3X version because they are using different TPS versions. And apparently, don't ask me why, but TI, they do have like 3 or 4 different TPS 546 versions, and all of them behave different. And they are not willing to explain that why, and the datasheets don't mention that. So it was super weird. It was a really, really long time to get this actually up and running. So yeah, finally we're here. Finally we have it. It's a burden that is finally gone. Let's see. Are finished products with the ASIC be allowed to be shipped outside the US? Yeah, Mutajim, that's a super weird thing. Like, I don't know. The only thing that I do know is these Bonanza chips that someone does have, and they shipped a couple of them to the SHA-256 Foundation. They were free. And the contract that the SHA-256 Foundation does have signed says they are not allowed to ship that outside of the US. So, yeah, they are not allowed to do that. I mean, technically, there could be someone in the US like, yeah, well, send me 20 chips, and they just send us over 5 chips. Could work. I don't know. It's a super weird thing. Good. Denkin, are you still there?
Yeah. I was muted because I was like bashing my keyboard and I didn't want to annoy everybody. I was just angry, rage replying to somebody. So, but it's fine. I'm cool. I need obviously more mushroom beer. So,
I'm just making sure that
yeah.
I'm not holding a monologue here. So I wanted to ask you, like, what are your expectations for this year? What are you looking into for this year, for
Gosh.
2026? Like, what is?
Okay.
I do have a vision, but I want to hear yours. And let's see.
Okay. So, oh gosh. I remember someone asked me this question this time last year, and I thought I need more time. I need more time. 'Cause at that time last year, I was full time running my event company, but I've thrown all that in. The company that I started in actually 24 years ago, I walked away from, sold my shares. I'm out and done. I no longer do that, and I now do this 100% full time. So I am really, really excited and looking forward to just developing more really cool stuff. And it's not just cool stuff; it's beautiful stuff that would just look great in anyone's home. And the thing is, like with the open source kind of mining movement, there's a fuse has been lit. I've said this before: a fuse has been lit, and it's not just one fuse on a linear kind of run. It's like it's spiders out. You've got so many kind of projects, kind of in every kind of corner of the globe. That doesn't work, does it? You know what I'm saying? All reaches of the planet. And it's just fantastic to see kind of people coming together and working together. Bitforge Nano, for example. You had me, you, Ben, and a few others, kind of all with our fingers, kind of on various kind of bits, all playing on our strengths to make something beautiful. And it doesn't need to be one person doing one thing. It's like, this is my product, move. Like, actually, the thing is about OSMU, it's a community, and it pulls out the best people, with enthusiasm and passion and and knowledge, and just kind of putting all these people together in a room. Great things come out of it. And I'm just really excited to actually I think personally have my own kind of time and headspace just to really concentrate on this full time, and just give back and contribute what I can. Also, really looking forward to going to Vegas, and I'm very pleased to say that you're coming with me, Wonklu.
Yes, Vegas is going to be
Yes,
insane. Hopefully.
yeah. So those of you at BTC Vegas, Wonklu and I will both be there, working on. It's still early days, but working on a talk that we've been asked about, which is pretty cool. So yeah, there's that. There's BTC Prague, which is also really bloody cool, which we'll go to. I'm just genuinely, I've never been happier work. And I don't look at this as work. I look at this as fun. And actually, the fact that I don't have to go and deal with a load of fucking children, metaphorically, children at my old office, where it's just like running a bloody playground, where it's just fighting fires. I've been in Bitcoin since 2011. I've always been passionate about the building, making, creating, designing, all in the mining ecosystem. And the fact this whole OSMU and all the community kind of exists quite frankly, it's my happy place. So yeah, like I don't care what comes up. I just want to be involved. That's me.
Awesome. I'm really looking forward to that, especially the fact about Vegas. I'm really into that. I really do hope that things work out as they are. I mean, as you said, we're gonna be over there, and we will have some sort of a talk over there. Let's see where, what stage, whatever. Things are not confirmed on that end. The only thing that's confirmed that we will be there and having a talk, but where or about what exactly is not confirmed yet. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's just 4 months away, so especially for me, it's going to be crazy. It's the first time ever that I will set foot on American soil. So let's see how this went. But yeah, I also
Let's
quickly
go fat. Clue.
yeah. Let's see how quickly I can get cuffed, huh?
Yeah, with such a burner phone. Yes, that's
yes. Quickly
yeah,
to clean up here with a question in the chat. Decentralized Mind was asking if the 801 is getting close to be released. So I'm sorry if I haven't made this clear, but the 801 is released. Taking a look on the GitHub repository, the 801 has been released 5 days ago. Maybe I should do an announcement about this on the Discord server. I'm sorry. Yep. But I posted it on X, and yeah, sometimes it's a little bit hard for all the people to keep up with the news, what's going on. I should do an announcement here on the Discord server so that all the, let's see, 12,519 people on the server do know that the GT is out there and can start doing whatever they want with it. So, yeah. Buy a burner phone. Yep, probably a good idea, Montajum.
I would like to just chime in actually. So MIB001, I'm assuming Men in Black. I don't want to ignore your question because obviously, basically, you're new here. Thanks for dropping in. The long and short of it, you were mining 10 years ago. Yeah, a lot has, as you can probably tell, a lot has happened in 10 years. 10 years ago we were the S9 ASICs, and it was all just very loud, noisy, and industrial. But the fact is that home mining has come full circle now, back to what you see before you, like your Super Hex 702, for example. So in terms of cooling accessories and stuff that kind of goes with all that, the best thing you can do is just jump into the OSMU communities, and just ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Of course, you'll always get idiots that are going to be internet idiots, but generally we don't have that here because it's fairly well moderated. But yeah, just ask questions and just learn. This whole movement, this OSMU kind of community is about education, learning, inspiring. So just ask all the questions. Feel free to DM me if you want to. I've been in mining for equally as long, if not a little bit longer. I do tons of dev work and stuff, and I'll help where I can. So yeah, just jump into the communities, ask questions, and as I said, feel free to DM me.
With that, one thing that for the GT is also coming out, but which will be announced probably in 2 weeks with the next town hall, because then Ben will be here with me on stage and we can talk about this, is an accessory for it. We have had the BAP, the BitX accessory port, on numerous PCB designs for a long time. There was never really be any implementation. So a couple of months ago, I took the hurdle and I spent like 3 or 4 months implementing the BAP protocol. And now we do have an open thing of, okay, well, what are we going to do with it? I had a couple of burner projects that I wanted to do with it, which are nice. And it's super easy to integrate anything with the BAP. But there needs to be something. And therefore, yeah, things are coming. And it might be something with a screen. And it might be something cool. So stay tuned for that for the next town hall. So maybe you're interested in that as well. And to give you guys, especially those of you who are later on joining into this session, a little bit more curiosity, if you want to dive deeper into it, as I said, check out our Discord server as discord.gg/OSMU. But if you want to dive a little bit more into technical things, and Discord sometimes is good, it does have a search functionality. So you can just join into the server and use the search bar to search for specific topics. And sometimes you find stuff, sometimes you don't. But we also do have a wiki page, which you can find under osmu.wiki, where we at least I'm trying my best to keep things as up to date as possible. Sometimes I'm good, sometimes I miss things and it takes weeks to update them. But there is also a ton of information if you want to dive into that as well. So with that, let's see. What else do we have? What's coming up for 2026? I mean, obviously, I said it, we will have a ton of new devices coming up. It's gonna be a little bit silent these days around the BitX family because there's not really that much going on. And this is for a reason. I mean, most of the main developers are either working on different things or there's just plainly no time. As you do know, this community does run purely on people who does spend their free time on doing these things. Like we're not a community or we are not a brand or a company that is paid for doing that. I wish we would be. That would be super cool. Like working on things that you love full time, paid. Oh my goodness, that is insane. Maybe one day, but till then, things are based on all of these beautiful and awesome minds that do spend their time on developing great things. So yeah, sometimes things are a little bit slow, but that's also good because then things cook in an even better way. Like think about a stew that took a couple of days to finish. That's tasty. Sorry, I'm switching off topic here.
Do you want to?
Wait a second. Can we do a shout out to a dev that's experienced in Angular and other front end stuff? Mutajim, are you referencing to my shout out for duck eggs that I was doing? I mean, I'm happy to do it again. Duck eggs, I'm sorry that you're gone. We love you. Please come back. But for everybody else who is into Angular and front end stuff, we do have one PR on GitHub. I'm not sure. Is it the same? No, it's a different person, I think. We have a PR open and we need to update our Angular front end we're currently sitting at Angular 18 and obviously we should upgrade to Angular 20 or 21. But the process takes a little bit of time. So if anybody of you is out there listening to this later on, or even listening currently right now to this, if you want to help with front end and on that, it would be really appreciated. Mutatrim and I, we both are more or less hoping to be only on the back end of things. We don't really want to do anything with front end. It's not our stereotype of preferred programming stuff. So if anybody of you is willing to join into that and want to join this here and help drive and thrive and redesign the web experience and interface for the people, please come on. Yeah, Mutatrim, you're right. CSS. That is CSS. That is CSS. Oh my goodness. Yeah, 100%. With that, let's see. Do you guys have any questions? Have I missed anything in the chat? If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. You do have the chat functionality on the right-hand side that you can utilize to ask any questions. If you want to come up on stage and just talk about things or do a shout out or whatever, feel free to raise your hand and we'll make sure to bring you up on stage. Otherwise, you can use the chat functionality to ask your questions because these town halls are recorded and later on uploaded to all sorts of podcast platforms. Let's see, what else is going on here? I mean, heat sinks is quite a bummer. You know what's quite weird that I've seen lately is there is some heat sink floating around that is brand new and does allow everybody to keep on hashing at 1.5 terahash with their BitX. Yeah, I don't know. I'm a little bit unemotional when it comes to heat sinks, especially like promoting a heat sink to be the game changer. Heat sinks are definitely needed, and there are some things to it, but it's super weird. And most of the things that you do see about heat sinks is either something or someone rebranding heat sinks, or you do have the exact opposite, like Duncan, who's designing completely from scratch a new heatsink in different approach and form factor to match what is needed. And then I don't know, like, do you want to push your bidex that far? There are issues to it, and people
Yeah,
always ask,
if I may, actually,
"Yeah, go, please."
I totally agree with you. Like, so many people are pushing and pushing and pushing their bit axes with, crazy heat sinks and fans and funnels, and like, hats off to you. Create, make, have fun, whatever. But you're going to kill your thing. Oh yeah, my VREG's running at 75, but it's fine. It's all really hot. But look, it's 2.1 terahash, and why is my power supply smoking? Why is the DC jack melted? Why is this not working? And so on. Like, there is a limit, and actually, it irritates me. It's one of my kind of bugbears, because I produce and sell bit axes, and then people put all this crap on it, and they complain to me that they burnt their bit axe out. And at what point, actually, do you just think, let's just leave it and move on with your day?
I mean,
It's just this whole,
there's the
because
thing. We had the discussion. I think it was over a year ago. Scott and I, we had the discussion: should we limit how far you can go with your bidex? And we agreed on no. It is your hardware. You can do whatever you want with it. But obviously, it's going to put all the manufacturers in a bad position, because everybody can just burn up their bidex and go back to the manufacturer and tell them, "Well, I want my warranty. I want a new device. It's broken. You messed up." And as a manufacturer, you cannot do anything against that unless you implement some sort of your own policy, which are more or less in most cases shady or just unfair. But that's just my personal opinion. The issue with limiting things is people will outcry about that. And we've seen that with the Node X devices. Like PMAX was implementing that the Node X's can no longer be overclocked anything higher than, I think, 700 or 750 megahertz, which is like crazy. Even the stock firmware, even modified firmwares from Brains or other things like Epic, they don't even allow you to go that high on the frequency. And the most crazy part is, if you go really high and crazy with the frequency on your bidex, it will cause issues, not only with the chip itself, because it will wear out and other components will also wear out, but also in the communication on the device. I've seen it multiple times that like temperature reading is no longer working or other things if you do go beyond limits that are good for this device. So this is just a recommendation. I personally never really do overclock them too hard. The highest I usually go is something like 600. If I do have them in the basement and they're super cool, then that's more or less okay. But all my devices that I do have in my office are more or less underclocked or sitting somewhere in the range between 400 to 500 megahertz. That's it. And I mean, I don't know why you would go higher. Like, are you really going to change the odds for you if you have 1.2 terahash or 1.8? Maybe, yeah, but well, it's a per mil change probably. And
yeah, I think,
Duncan, thank you for posting this picture. This is the heatsink that I was referring to. Like, yeah, well, it's copper. Yeah, well, it sort of copper. It does have a copper plate. It does have aluminium fins. Okay, cool, but that's not something groundbreaking. I I do see PMAX is, and he left. Okay. Anyway, I do see like people are interested in overclocking and all sorts of things, but in the end of the day, well, yeah, you do whatever you want with it, but if you burn up your device, it's up to you.
yeah. And there is a mathematical curve. If you graphed it, or you went old school and literally shoved it in Excel, and you looked at your power, and the power you're using with the hash rate you're generating, at some point that curve will plateau, and you'll end up just actually burning more power that isn't proportional to your hash rate, and dramatically reducing the life of your ASIC. And I think there is a sweet spot to actually not going too crazy and exchanging that for longevity. Yes, you might get another 200 gigahash out of extreme overclocking, but if you reduce the life of your unit by 6 months, actually, is it worth it? Probably not.
I mean, there's also a thing to it. If you think about all of these different ASIC chips that are out there, people, if they hear about the very first time about ASIC chips, they're super confused. They're like, well, there's the BM1370. Yeah, well, no, there's like the BA, the PA, the BS, the BC, the PM. there are different models of it. The PM, for example, does have a package which is copper based or does have a copper finish. And the super weird thing about it is initially you would think, oh, whoa, this is copper. That's really good for heat transfer, etc. PP. Well, yeah, yes, but these chips, which was counterintuitive to me, I received them. I sorted them on my BitX. I had 2 or 3 of them tested, and all of the PM chips with the copper finish, they performed worse on higher clocks than on lower clocks, which is the interesting part. So you do see even like the manufacturers of these chips, they don't really go for like high hash rate numbers. They go for the most efficient version of it, which is what the world wants. Like you want to spend the least amount of wattage for the most amount of hash rate. And in the home mining industry, it's completely different. Like people don't care about the power consumption because it's yeah, minor. And now I do see PMAX is back in the check here. PMAX, what's the upper limit for the NodeX devices when it comes to the frequency? I said something like 700, 750 because I do know you put in the limit in there. 800, thank you. Okay, yeah. I mean, even if you would go to 800, like who the hell would do that? It's super crazy. And it's out of bound of what is allowed on any other firmware. Like no other firmware allows you that. And then I do see people on Reddit are always crazy. Like the subreddit that we do have, that's the most craziest part that we ever had, and that I've ever seen personally. Because people are doing so crazy things. I've seen BitXs running at 1.1 gigahertz. Like what the freaking heck?
Well, these people got to stay warm somehow, and it starts by setting shit on fire. So, but to be fair, I'm going to counter exactly my little rant of what I just said. Like, actually, that's how we learn. Actually pushing stuff to the limit and experimenting and playing is exactly how we learn and how we improve and how we make the next versions bigger and better. I just think, on my part, I'm just really tired of people returning stuff saying it broke when clearly, and I load it back up and they've overclocked it like beyond, what anything should be overclocked and so on. So I'm just a little bit kind of just like, please stop blowing your shit up, I guess is where I'm coming from.
Yeah, well, there are these two positions to it. I mean, I do see it why you want to fuffer around with it, which is always encouraged to do. I mean, not in terms of like burn up your BitX. I love to see these pictures, but it's also hurting at the same time. But yeah, fuffering around is the reason why we're here. Fuffering around is the reason why this product even exists, why Scott had this initial idea and was designing it, and why all of these minds came into this place and we found OSMU, and why we are now doing all of these different miners. Fuffering around is the reason for so many things. So don't stop doing it, but be curious about if you want to burn down your house or not. I mean, I'm not saying it's happening. I'm just saying like be gentle to your device. Treat it like your wifey. Be nice to it. Hopefully, you're nice to your wives.
Don't overclock your wife.
At least not beyond 800 megahertz.
Yeah, MIB, is that supposed to say efficiency? But anyway, yeah, efficiency is going to be the future. Yes, it needs to be, especially for Bitcoin mining to succeed in the home. I also believe, with all of the, there was a water heater launched at CS in Barcelona, I think, 3 or 4 days ago. That's, heating a whole house with
It was in
ASIC
Vegas.
mining. And I was in Vegas.
Yes.
The fact that it needs to. Well, sorry, just throw me. Yes, it needs to be efficient for it to succeed. Otherwise, you end up, kind of running at a loss. But essentially, any non KYC Bitcoin is a win, isn't it? Really, according to people. But yeah, look, it's Bitcoin mining's here to stay, and it's just getting better. And we all know it's going to be in the home kind of indefinitely. So yes, it needs to be efficient.
Rod B is asking, what's a good efficiency to shoot for? I mean, it depends on what you're looking for. I mean, the most weird thing that we had in the very early days with the BitX Max, which was the very first BitX that we ever created, was that we peaked out at better efficiencies than what Bitmain itself was capable of shipping out. But I always said to the people who are curious about it, how could this happen? is, well, the reason is that we are just singly using one single chip. We're not using like a giant hash board with different temperature zones, with maybe inappropriate air cooling, etc., etc., etc. There's so many things that are going into this. And as Mutatram was saying in the chat, like 70 joules per terahash or lower is a good thing to have. I usually try to go into the efficiency factor of like 15 to 16 joules per terahash, but with that, it comes at a cost. And the cost in that terms is, well, hash rate. Sure, it is going to be reducing my hash rate, but on the other hand, I also like if my power bill is lower. So, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's always that argument, isn't there, between what it's costing to run, and the hash rate you get. And obviously, the more hash rate you get, it's that metaphor of the more tickets you have to the lottery. But there comes a point, that if you're if you do the maths on it, these things aren't free to run, unless you have them plugged into the office. Disclaimer, if you're allowed to or whatever, or you have solar. These things all cost money to run. And I do recommend actually anyone looking, go just do a Bitcoin mining power calculator and just stick in 17, 18, 20 watt or whatever into your your power calculator and look at what that's costing you a month, because it's not free. And actually, if you've got tons of these things and you're going from 500 watt to 800 watt to get a little bit more hash rate, well, actually, that will make a difference on your power bill. Obviously, more for me because I'm in the UK and our governments are dicks. But we won't get into that with power and politics. But it's just electric's expensive, is what I'm trying to say. So.
Yeah, I do agree. And I also do agree on that, what MIB said in the chat, that the proper combination that gives you the highest amount of reasonable hash rate to the lowest wattage and consumption and temperature combination is the best to go for. It's especially hard because we do have this shift in like winter and summer. So yeah, you mostly need to play around with this. I mean, we also do have yeah, I'm gonna answer this question in just a second. Thank you, Machadrim. We also do have an open PR for some auto tuning open, but that's that's gonna take a little bit of time. We do have a question here from Rod B. What was it? The question: is there a rule of thumb on how often you should replace a thermal paste after 2 months of use? Mine dropped 10 Cs, which I was really happy about. So that's a really good question. Like, how often should you actually take care about your bit eggs? Well, the easiest answer to that is whenever you feel like things are off, which is probably not a rule of thumb. But what I do is I use, let me quickly take a look. I do have a thermal paste from Thermal Take, the MX7, I believe, or something like that. I would need to look it up. But I do have this thermal paste, and I repaste my devices every like 4 to 5 months. That's what I do. I was really working good. It was really working good with them. I've seen other thermal pastes which are cheaper and they perform way worse. So I would say going for something crazy like Thermal Grizzly thermal paste is like the top notch thing. You get the best conductivity and you probably have the least maintenance that you need to do. But when it comes to like cheaper things, expect to need to rework them more often, which is also a little bit stressful, especially if you do have one of these cheaper heat sinks, which does come with the plastic sticky thingies. Then they're gonna wear out over time as well, and maybe you will have less pressure on your ASIC, and then you have higher temperature and so on, and it's a treadmill. So if you want to go for the best combination, choose a thermal paste which does have lots of reviews online, which does have good reviews, is not too cheap, or at least does not feel too cheap in that term, and maybe switch over to a heatsink that is properly secured with screws and spacers, and don't go for these plastic thingies because they will wear out. Even if you just leave them in there, they will wear out. It's plastic and there's pressure on them. It will wear out over time. So MIB is running. I would do some maintenance, including changing your oil no less than once a year. I use MX4 and change it every 6 months. Yeah. As I said, I'm MX. I'm also using MX. I'm using MX7, I think, or MX6. I don't know specifically. I did got the Grizzly paste. Yeah, the Grizzly paste, as far as I do know, so Thermal Grizzly, German-based company, they do one of the greatest thermal pastes out there for cooling devices, primarily CPUs, that is available on the market. But they are also pricey. I have a small scoop of thermal paste, some crazy stuff, and it costs over $20. It was insane. But anyway, if we do not have any more questions, I do see we already exceeded the 1 hour mark here. I'm happily inviting everybody else to join over in the general voice chat down below. If you guys don't have any further questions, feel free to ask any if you do have them. Otherwise, we'll close this down here. And for everybody who's listening to this later on, thanks for tuning in. Especially for those of you in the audience here, thank you guys for tuning in. I've seen a couple of faces that I've seen multiple times. I also do see new people joining in here. It's fantastic to have you. Welcome. Feel free to scoop around and hopefully get you intrigued and interested in the open source theme. And don't expect anything less than open source in here.
Exactly what One Clue said. Well done.
Oh my goodness. All right. Let's see. I don't see anything else in the chat. I'd say cheers and see you again in 2 weeks for a couple of more news that I'm really happy to talk about. Till then, peace out.